My name is Rachel Morgan. When my father died, my mother said she was keeping my $50,000 college fund safe. 2 years later, the money was gone, and so was every answer. If something like this has happened to you, tell your story in the comments. The paperwork arrived a week after the funeral, thin and unceremonious. $50,000 listed under my name, earmarked for college. My father had arranged it years earlier. He liked things labeled, dated, accounted for. I held the envelope at the kitchen table while my mother stood nearby, already talking. She said she could hold the money for me, said it would be smarter that way. I was still young, still figuring things out, and tuition wasn't urgent yet. The market was doing well, she added, and letting the fund sit would be a waste. Her voice carried the confidence of someone used to making decisions without being asked. A single-page authorization followed. No lawyer, no meeting, just a place to sign. The pen slid across the paper. The signature looked steady enough. At the time, that felt like responsibility, letting an adult handle something important. Life moved on. Work filled the days. Classes stayed on pause. 2 years went by without any reason to ask questions. The fund existed somewhere, untouched, growing, at least in theory. When it came time to plan a return to school, I picked up the phone during a lunch break. The call wasn't dramatic, no build-up, just a practical question about timing and tuition. "The money isn't there anymore," my mother said. Traffic hummed on the other end. Someone honked. The sentence landed without emphasis. "What do you mean, not there?" I asked. "The market dropped," she replied. "It happens." No apology followed, no numbers, just a shrug carried through the line. I asked how much was left. "Basically nothing," she said. "I didn't want to worry you." The words "basically nothing" floated there, vague enough to be flexible. I pressed for details. She deflected, saying the losses were complicated and investments weren't guarantees, that I wouldn't understand all the technical parts. A pause stretched between us, filled by the sound of a register opening somewhere behind me. My lunch order was ready. The cashier called a name that wasn't mine. "I need the statements," I said. "I'll send them later," she answered quickly. "They're packed away." Later became tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Each follow-up got a softer response, then shorter ones. Emails came back without attachments. Texts went unanswered until late at night. One message finally arrived. "Trust me, I did my best." Trust didn't come with a PDF. I searched my files that evening. Old emails, tax forms, anything official. The authorization form surfaced again, scanned and saved. It showed my name, her name, and a date. That was it. No account number, no balance history, no proof of growth or loss. A banking app opened on my phone out of habit. My checking account flashed a balance measured in hours of work, not years of planning. The contrast felt almost funny. A fund that once promised a future had vanished without leaving a paper trail, while a $20 charge showed up instantly with a timestamp and location. The phone stayed face down after that last message. No reply came that night or the next morning. Schedules filled the gap instead. A shift supervisor nodded when asked for extra hours and slid a clipboard across the desk. "How many days?" he asked. "Whatever you've got. Start tonight." That was the extent of the conversation. Work solved nothing, but it absorbed time. Conveyor belts didn't care where tuition money went. Boxes kept moving, scanners kept beeping. Paychecks arrived on Fridays, modest and punctual, unlike everything else. School plans were pushed back with a few clicks on a website. The confirmation email thanked me for my interest and wished me luck in the future. Automated politeness carried a certain honesty. At least the system said what it meant. Family didn't. An aunt called first. She spoke softly, the way people do when they think calm can fix a problem they don't intend to touch. "Your mother's been through a lot," she said. "Losing your dad changed her." "I know." "Then don't turn this into something ugly." The word ugly hung there, undefined. Another relative texted later with a similar message, suggesting patience, forgiveness, understanding. No one asked how much money was gone. No one asked to see paperwork. By the end of the week, the story had shifted. My mother told relatives that I didn't understand how investing worked, that markets rose and fell, that young people expected guarantees where none existed. The phrasing traveled quickly, cleaned up as it went. At work, a coworker asked why I'd picked up so many shifts. "School later," I said. "That's smart," he replied. "Less debt." The comment landed wrong, not because it was cruel, but because it made sense. A different version of events would have made it true. A search for low-cost tax help led to a small office wedged between a dry cleaner and a cell phone repair shop. A printed sign listed services and prices in block letters. The consultation fee was lower than dinner out. Daniel Ruiz greeted me with a handshake and a chair. He didn't rush, didn't offer sympathy. A legal pad sat on the desk, blank. "What brings you in?" he asked. I laid out the facts as cleanly as possible. The fund, the authorization, the call, the missing statements. No adjectives, just dates and amounts. Daniel wrote nothing at first. He listened, nodded once, then finally spoke. "I'll need the bank statements," he said. "Any emails about transfers, dates, exact ones." "I don't have everything," I said. "Then we start with what you do have." No judgment followed. No guess at motives. The approach felt procedural, almost mechanical. It was a relief. An email arrived from my mother that night with attachments. 3 pages total. Account summaries with cropped margins, balances without transaction histories. The dates jumped from one quarter to the next. Daniel scrolled through the files during the follow-up visit. "These are incomplete," he said. "Do you have earlier ones?" That's all she sent. He tapped a line with his pen. "This transfer here, do you know where it went?" The destination account was masked. Only the last 4 digits showed. "She said it was reinvested," I answered. "Reinvested where?" No answer came to that. Another message went out requesting full statements. The reply arrived hours later, defensive and brief. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Harder than what wasn't specified. The family response hardened after that. Invitations slowed. Calls stopped. A cousin unfriended me online. My mother posted an article about market volatility with a caption about resilience. It gathered likes from people who didn't know the details and didn't ask. Daniel requested records directly from the bank. Forms were filled out, fees were paid. The bank confirmed receipt and estimated a processing window of 10 to 14 business days. The email thanked me for my patience. "Systems love patience," Daniel said. "They run on it." When the records arrived, they came as a thick PDF. Dates, times, amounts. Everything aligned neatly. Until it didn't. Daniel leaned closer to the screen. "This transfer?" he said, pointing. "See the timestamp?" The date fell weeks after the period my mother claimed the market collapse had forced liquidation. "That doesn't match what she told you," he added. The discrepancy wasn't dramatic, no flashing warning, just a quiet misalignment between story and record. Daniel closed the file without comment and slid the laptop back across the desk. Outside, my phone buzzed with a text from work asking if I could cover another shift tomorrow. A reply went out before standing up. Documents began to stack up without asking permission. Old emails surfaced first, dug out of folders that hadn't been opened in years. Bank alerts followed, some read, some ignored at the time because they hadn't seemed urgent then. Tax records came last, downloaded from a government portal that greeted me by name and thanked me for my cooperation. The system always sounded pleased when people complied. Dates were lined up next to each other. Amounts were copied into a notebook. Patterns started to form, uneven at first, then clearer. One transfer stood out. It didn't move between familiar institutions. It landed somewhere else entirely. The company name meant nothing at first. A quick search fixed that. The address matched a small office across town. The registered owner was a man Linda had mentioned once or twice after my father died. Casual references, nothing that sounded like a business partnership. A call went out that afternoon. "That company," I said. "Why did my money go there?" A pause followed, longer than the others. "It was a recommendation," Linda replied. "Someone I trusted." "Trusted how?" "You're reading too much into this." The answer slid past the question without touching it. That evening, messages arrived from relatives who hadn't reached out in months. The tone had shifted. Less advice, more frustration. "Why are you digging this up?" one asked. "What good will it do now?" said another. The phrase "already gone" appeared more than once, as if repetition could make it final. Daniel reviewed the updated files during a short appointment squeezed between other clients. He flipped through pages quickly, efficient, careful. "If you keep going," he said, "this stops being a family disagreement." "What does it become?" "Paperwork," he answered, "with consequences." The word consequences wasn't raised or stressed. It landed flat, like a line item on a bill. Requests went out to the bank for complete statements. Authorization forms were signed again, more detailed this time. Fees posted immediately. The receipt arrived before I stood up from the chair. Linda responded within minutes of the notification. The message was longer than any before it. "I sacrificed everything for you," it read. "I stayed when others left. I made choices so you wouldn't have to. Now you're treating me like a criminal." No mention of numbers, no attachment. Daniel read the message without expression. "This is emotional," he said. "It's not documentation." The bank sent an automated update the next day. Processing was underway. Estimated completion, 7 business days. The email ended with a satisfaction survey. At work, the pace stayed the same. Pallets rolled by, scanners beeped. A supervisor reminded everyone about safety protocols and overtime limits. When asked if I could stay late again, the answer came out automatically. Family pressure tightened. A voicemail accused me of being ungrateful. Another warned that reputations couldn't be repaired once damaged. Someone suggested therapy, as if confusion rather than math sat at the center of the problem. Linda called again near the end of the week. "You don't need to involve strangers," she said. "We can handle this." "How?" I asked. "I'll figure something out." No timeline followed, no proposal. The bank documents arrived early the following Monday. The PDF was thick, dense, unapologetic. Transaction histories filled page after page. Daniel scrolled slowly this time. "Here," he said, stopping near the middle. "This email confirmation." The timestamp sat beneath the header. The date came after a news article Daniel pulled up in another window, one announcing the company's financial trouble weeks earlier. "That's after they were already in trouble," he said. The confirmation showed a successful transfer. No warning, no delay. Outside the office, my phone vibrated again. A text from Linda appeared, shorter than the last. "Please stop." The screen dimmed before any response was typed. An email from the college arrived before dawn. The subject line thanked me for my interest. The body explained that without verified funding, enrollment couldn't proceed. A link at the bottom invited me to reapply when circumstances changed. The message closed with a friendly signature and office hours. Work started an hour later. The schedule had already been updated. Someone had swapped shifts. No one mentioned school. By midday, my phone filled with notifications. Family threads lit up with concern that sounded rehearsed. A cousin forwarded a message my mother had sent to several people at once. According to her, I was accusing her over money, as if the accusation itself were the injury. The wording framed the situation neatly. A daughter choosing dollars over loyalty. Replies followed, advising restraint. One person asked if public fights were worth it. Another reminded me that parents made mistakes and children moved on. No one referenced documents. Later that afternoon, a news alert crossed my screen. The company that received the transfer had filed for bankruptcy protection. The headline listed debts, creditors, and a court date. The article mentioned market conditions and unforeseen challenges. My name didn't appear anywhere. Neither did the source of the funds. Daniel reviewed the filing during a short call. "That closes one door," he said. "Recovery from them is unlikely." "What about the fund?" I asked. "It wasn't reported correctly," he replied, "which means there's a tax issue." A pause followed, filled by the low hum of his office printer. "If this stays unaddressed," he added, "you could be treated as complicit." Complicit wasn't a word used lightly. It carried a shape, a weight. My mother called that evening. Her voice shook this time. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. "Everything just collapsed." She asked me to come by the house. Papers were ready, she said, something to make it official. A way to put the loss on record and move forward. The document waited on the kitchen table, a single page titled Voluntary Investment Loss Acknowledgement. My name appeared twice. Her signature sat at the bottom, already dated. "If you sign," she said, "we can close this." "What does this do?" I asked. "It explains what happened," she replied. "It protects everyone." "Everyone from what?" "From things getting worse." The phrasing felt practiced. She dabbed at her eyes and talked about long nights after my father died, about fear, about trying to hold things together. The form stayed between us, unmoved. Daniel's voice echoed in my head, stripped of tone. Paperwork with consequences. A pen was placed beside the page. "This just says the investment failed," she continued. "It doesn't blame anyone." "But it says I agreed to it," I said. "That's how these things work." The pen stayed where it was. Signing would have simplified the story. It would have aligned with the version already circulating. A loss accepted, a lesson learned, no further questions. "I'm not signing this," I said. The sentence came out steady. No explanation followed. Her expression shifted. Tears stopped. Frustration replaced them. "You're making a mistake," she said. "You don't understand what this will do." I understand what it does, I answered. The form was slid back across the table. She gathered it up without comment and folded it once, sharply, before setting it aside. That night, Daniel received the message he'd been waiting for. Authorization to proceed formally. Banks, tax authorities, everything documented. You know this won't be quick, he said. I know. It also won't be private. That's fine. He paused. Most people hesitate here. Most people already signed something. The next morning, a certified letter was prepared. Copies were scanned. Receipts were generated automatically. Each step produced confirmation numbers and estimated timelines. The system thanked me again for my cooperation. At work, another shift opened up. The notification appeared without context. Accepting it took a single tap. Letters arrived faster than conversations. A bank envelope asked for clarification of authorization and responsibility. The language stayed neutral, almost polite, as if no one had lost anything yet. A deadline appeared in bold. Another email followed from a different department, thanking me in advance for prompt cooperation. Family messages moved in the opposite direction. Calls suggested meeting privately, settling things without involving outsiders. The phrase, "handle it as a family," showed up again and again, always without a plan attached. Paperwork spread across the table that night. The authorization form stared back, thin and generous in what it allowed. One signature, no guardrails. My handwriting looked younger there, less certain, though the line itself stayed straight. Daniel called during a break between clients. This isn't about recovering money anymore, he said. It never really was. It's about whether you let the liability land on you. Another message arrived while he spoke, a reminder from the bank. 48 hours left. What happens if I stop? I asked. Then the story ends where someone else wrote it, he said, and you carry the result. Linda called later, voice soft but persistent. You're tearing the family apart, she said. I'm asking questions. This didn't need to go this far. She spoke about my father, about the nights after he died, about bills and fear. The words came smoothly, practiced through repetition. I did what I could, she added. A mother does that. Relatives followed up in a chain of short messages, each urging restraint, unity, forgiveness. One warned that official complaints had a way of following people. Another suggested time would heal things faster than forms. A notice from the tax office arrived the next morning. The subject line mentioned potential unreported income. The message thanked me for my attention and outlined possible penalties if the matter remained unresolved. A link offered additional resources. The humor hid in the timing. Everyone else spoke in feelings. The system spoke in bullet points. Daniel reviewed the notice and nodded. This is the point people usually decide, he said. Decide what? Whether to absorb someone else's mess or not. Linda showed up that afternoon without calling. She carried a folder this time, thicker than before. I've been talking to people, she said. There are ways to calm this down. The papers inside proposed a different acknowledgement, worded more carefully. Loss shared. Responsibility blurred. My name still appeared where consent mattered. If you sign, she said, they'll leave us alone. They? I asked. Everyone. The pen waited again. Her eyes stayed fixed on the page. I can't do that, I said. Her face tightened. Sympathy drained out. You're choosing strangers over me, she said. I'm choosing accuracy. The word landed poorly. She packed the folder back up, movements sharp, efficient. Family silence followed. Messages stopped. Invitations vanished. Social media updated without me. The absence spoke louder than the arguments. The final notice from the bank arrived before the deadline. It requested a response by end of day. A customer service number sat at the bottom, followed by a survey link asking how likely I was to recommend their services. Daniel waited on the line while forms were uploaded. "Once this goes in," he said, "there's no undo." Files transferred one by one. Each upload generated a confirmation. Each confirmation thanked me again. Linda sent one last message as the progress bar filled. "You don't come back from this." The screen showed completion. A receipt appeared with a reference number and an estimated review period. "I know," I said, though no reply went out. Requests started arriving from addresses that didn't recognize emotion. Subject lines listed case numbers and reference codes. Each message asked for clarification, attachments, timelines. The tone stayed even, professional, almost friendly. Every email ended with a reminder to respond within a specified window. Daniel reviewed the first batch and exhaled slowly. "They're cross-checking now," he said. "With what?" "Everything." More records came in from the bank, this time flagged. Transfers lined up against internal notes. Email confirmations sat next to transaction timestamps. A pattern formed that didn't leave much room for interpretation. "That money wasn't parked," Daniel said. "It was moved to cover losses." "Cover whose losses?" He slid a page across the desk. The company name appeared again, this time alongside internal correspondence. The owner's name showed up in the header of several messages, familiar now. "She knew they were bleeding," he added. "The transfer happened after." No raised voice followed, no dramatic pause, just a statement placed where facts belonged. The tax office sent another notice. This one confirmed receipt of materials and outlined the next phase of review. It included a checklist and an estimated timeline that stretched into months. A paragraph explained that emotional hardship, while understood, did not alter reporting requirements. The system acknowledged feelings without adjusting outcomes. That felt like a joke no one had written. Linda responded by shifting the narrative. A letter arrived from her attorney, formal and measured. It suggested that grief had affected judgment, that I had misunderstood complex financial decisions, that emotional instability after my father's death had colored perception. Daniel read it twice. "This is common," he said. "They try to move the question away from money." Family contact stopped completely after that. Group chats went silent, calls disappeared, photos circulated without tags. A line had been drawn without discussion. Another request came in, this time asking for correspondence between Linda and the company owner. Files were uploaded, dates matched, language stayed transactional. There was no affection in the messages, just urgency. Daniel warned me again. "This part drags," he said. "No one rushes justice." "What happens to her?" "That's not our call." Linda hired a second lawyer. The letters grew longer, accusations sharpened. Each claimed cooperation while denying responsibility. Every response asked for extensions. Meanwhile, questions directed at her increased. Requests for explanations, proof of intent, documentation supporting claims of advice received. The balance shifted quietly. She no longer set the terms. The first official interview request went out to her a week later. I wasn't copied. The notice simply appeared in the portal as an update. Status changed from review to investigation. Daniel pointed at the screen. "That's the pivot," he said. Work continued as usual. Shifts were covered, checks cleared. Life kept asking for normal participation, while something else unfolded in parallel. A final message came from Linda, shorter than any before. "You didn't have to do this." No response followed. Nothing useful could. Forms replaced phone calls. Each request arrived with a checklist and a deadline. Nothing more. Responses went out the same way, uploaded directly through portals that didn't allow commentary. The system didn't ask how anyone felt. It asked for files. Daniel stayed on standby, reviewing what went out and what came back. "Don't add explanations unless they ask," he said. "They don't want stories." Compliance became routine. Documents were labeled, dated, attached. Confirmation numbers stacked up. Every submission triggered a receipt that thanked me for prompt cooperation. The politeness never wavered. One afternoon, a notice appeared confirming status as an aggrieved party. The language was clinical. It stated that I had not benefited from the transactions, had not directed them, and held no reporting obligation beyond cooperation. The sentence carried more weight than it deserved. Daniel read it aloud once. "That clears you," he said. "What about her?" "They're not done." Silence followed from the family. No messages, no warnings, no advice. The earlier urgency evaporated as soon as the system took over. Emotional arguments didn't survive contact with forms. A separate letter arrived addressed to Linda, forwarded automatically through shared records. It requested explanation of unreported transfers and supporting documentation. Deadlines were firm. Penalties were outlined in numbered paragraphs. Another update confirmed an assessment of back taxes and administrative fines. The amount wasn't listed yet, only the method. Daniel glanced at the screen. "They've moved from questions to consequences," he said. Weeks later, an email arrived confirming restitution. The subject line referenced case resolution and included a PDF attachment. The amount matched the original fund down to the dollar. $50,000. No interest, no apology. A direct deposit form followed, asking where to send it. "That's it?" I asked. "That's it," Daniel said. Money doesn't do closure. The bank processed the transfer in 2 business days. A notification popped up confirming receipt. The app showed the balance clearly, unambiguous, and fully accessible. No joint names, no secondary approvals. A banner suggested setting up automatic savings goals. Work stayed steady. Shifts rotated. Supervisors nodded. Nothing about the routine changed. Paychecks continued to land on Fridays, dwarfed now by a number that once seemed abstract. A final communication arrived from the tax office, closing my portion of the inquiry. It thanked me for cooperation and included a survey link. The last line confirmed no further action was required. Linda never reached out again. No confrontation followed. No final argument arrived to summarize anything. The absence felt deliberate, chosen once leverage disappeared. Daniel closed the file during our last meeting. "You did what the system expects," he said. "What it expects isn't personal." "Nothing here is." The final notices arrived without drama. A sequence of emails confirmed assessments, penalties, and payment schedules. Linda's name appeared where responsibility belonged. Numbers replaced narratives. Deadlines replaced appeals. Each message closed with contact information and office hours, as if availability counted as comfort. No one asked me to intervene. No one suggested leniency. The system didn't invite commentary from people who weren't liable. Family silence held. The earlier urgency never returned. When consequences hardened, conversation thinned out. Group threads stayed dormant. Birthdays passed without calls. The absence didn't escalate into anything new. It simply stayed. A message from the tax office confirmed closure on my end. A receipt followed. Then, a calendar reminder set months out for compliance review. The language thanked me again for cooperation and encouraged record retention for future reference. The joke, if there was one, sat in the encouragement. Keep everything. Trust nothing without a copy. A new account opened with a few clicks and a verification code. My name appeared alone at the top. No secondary users, no authorizations waiting to be abused. The bank offered optional overdraft protection and suggested naming a trusted contact. That option stayed unchecked. Enrollment followed the same path. Applications submitted, documents uploaded, fees paid. The confirmation email welcomed me back and listed next steps in bullet points: advising hours, course numbers, payment deadlines. No one asked about family arrangements. Evening classes started a week later. Financial accounting on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The syllabus arrived ahead of time, complete with grading rubrics and office hours. The instructor emphasized documentation and controls during the first lecture. It wasn't meant to be funny, but the timing almost was. Work continued without interruption, shifts filled, overtime paid the same as before. The warehouse didn't change its pace because a personal crisis had resolved. That consistency mattered more than it should have. Linda never contacted me again. No apology followed. No explanation arrived to wrap anything up. Whatever version she held onto stayed with her, and the lawyers she paid. The distance felt permanent, not dramatic. Daniel closed the file with a brief email. "Everything on your side is settled," he wrote. "Keep records. Move forward." No advice beyond that. No moral summary. One night after class, a notification buzzed from the bank reminding me to review account activity. The app displayed the balance clearly. $50,000 sat where it couldn't be rerouted by someone else's confidence. A banner suggested setting goals. Another offered budgeting tools. Leaving the building after work, I passed the same bus stop used for years. The routine hadn't shifted much. The change lived elsewhere. Decisions moved without negotiation now. Forms went where they were supposed to go. A coworker asked how school was going. "Fine," I said. "That's good," he replied, already focused on his phone. Nothing about the exchange required elaboration. Walking to the car, a reminder popped up for an upcoming tuition payment. The amount matched what I expected. The due date left room to plan. Paying it took less than a minute. A receipt followed, stamped and archived automatically. There was no victory to savor, no moment that asked for reflection. Control returned quietly, the way it leaves when taken for granted. What remained was a schedule, a balance, and a set of choices that didn't need permission. The door locked behind me. Keys went into a pocket. Another shift opened for the weekend, and I accepted it without thinking, already calculating time between work and class. Nothing else needed holding.